Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. We had a great presentation again with Consolidated Planning Group. Thank you so much, Allison, for your time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Before we start our presentation, guys, we are going to talk about Partner Resource Network. My name is Veronica Alvarez, and I'm the Regional 13 Coordinator for Partner Resource Network. I'm going to share my screen very quickly. All right, this is me. So, Partner Resource Network is the parent training and information centers for Texas. We are funded by the Department of Education, the Office of Special Education, to provide free resources and training for parents of children with disabilities, and also youth with disabilities that we call them self-advocates. Our mission is to empower and support Texas families and individuals impacted by disabilities or special healthcare needs. Who we serve? We serve parents of children with disabilities, youth with disabilities, and our age range goes from 0 to 26 years old. Where we serve? In all the state of Texas. Partner Research Network was first funded in 1986, and now we have 4 projects serving parents. As you can see, we have several different names of the project. We have the PAT project, the TEAM, the PEN, and the PACT project. But we are all at the same family of Partner Research Network, and we are the Parent Training and Information Center for Texas. Myself, I'm part of the TEAM project in the red area. I'm in Austin. I'm serving parents here in Austin, Texas. Our services are free, and we offer parent workshops, youth workshops, webinars, information and referrals, one-on-one technical assistance with a lot of supports at the IEP meetings, our meetings, 504 plan meetings. We do once a year, each of our regional coordinator, we do once a year a symposium. We offer parent leadership training, youth leadership training, and we help you access to social media resources. So for today, we have some housekeeping items. So for today, your camera and your mic is off. If you have a question, please type it in the chat box or in the Q&A, and we are going to try to answer your question during the presentation. Or if it is too much, maybe you can contact us later on with your question that we haven't the chance to answer. That's Allison. We are going to record this presentation, and we are going to and we are going to post it in our Facebook page. Also, you are going to receive a survey with an evaluation. If please, it's just like 5 questions that help us a lot with our grant. And I already typed in the chat my information, and I will doing it again. My phone number and email is going to be in the chat box. You are going to receive also an email with the slides of the presentation, with handouts, fact sheets, and all the information that we are going to be talking today. So welcome again, Allison Chavert. She is a financial planner and has a lot of experience working with families with special healthcare needs. She is a founder member of the Consolidated Planning Group, and she's going to talk more about it. Welcome, Allison, again.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be back with you again today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I see some familiar names. So hi to you. You know who you are. I wanted to start because I don't want to forget at the end. I know Meredith put in the chat box on May 18th, NAMI, the National Association of Mental Illness, is having a 5K walk. It's in the greater Houston area. I know that we've got people from all over the state, maybe some people from out of state listening today, but the NAMI walk is coming up on 5/18 from 8:30 to noon. It's at the Sam Houston Race Park. And if you guys just don't know, I just want to mention this. The NAMI organization is a wonderful organization, and they have lots of free training for people themselves that have mental illness, for families who are caring for someone who has mental illness. You name the diagnosis, they have programs for that. A lot of their programs meet online by Zoom. A lot of them meet in person, and there are programs all across the US. It's not just in Texas, not just in Houston. So I just wanted to mention that. So if you're in the Houston area on the 18th, come check out the NAMI Walk. We will be there, and we would love to see you stop by our table. So today we are talking about Government Benefits 101. This is a presentation that I do a fair amount because it's never ending when it comes to government benefits, and we're talking about SSI and SSDI and childhood disability benefits and Medicaid and Medicare. It is enough to make your head spin. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. And as Veronica mentioned, Consolidated Planning Group has a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to for free. There are over 400 webinars on topics that might be relative to you and your journey as it relates to planning for a loved one with a disability. So you'll want to check that out. All of our past webinars live on that YouTube channel. And once you subscribe, then you can, peruse the topics that are most important to you and can watch them at your convenience. All of our presentations, we're always happy to provide a copy of the slides. So as she mentioned, everybody that's participating today will get a copy of these slides, so you don't have to write everything down. And if you happen to be listening to us by podcast, we'll be happy to send you the slides as well. And you can get those slides by emailing us at contact@cpgcares.net. That is contact@cpgcares.net. So Consolidated Planning Group, I know a lot of you have attended our webinars in the past, or you may be clients. We've worked with you in the past. We are a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We are domiciled in the state of Texas. We serve clients all throughout the United States. We have over 30 years of experience. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors, members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and we are an advisory and consulting firm. We help people set up protection plans, lifetime care plans. We do a lot of transition planning, Social Security analysis. We help people set up ABLE accounts, and we do a lot of advocacy by way of the webinars that we do. And as always, you've probably heard me say this before, but your situation when you have a loved one with a disability is specialized. You do want to work with a specialist. There's over 260,000 financial advisors in the US, and fewer than 0.1% are nuanced and special needs. So working with a professional that understands the doors that you need to walk through as a parent is going to be really, really important. So I first want to start off by, talking about the differences between SSDI versus SSI, because a lot of times people say my child gets Social Security. And while that's true, sometimes they are getting Social Security or SSDI. Most of the time when the kids are, under 18 or, before a parent retires, they're not getting SSDI, they're probably getting SSI. So I want to explain the two different programs. So SSDI is also known as Social Security. It is also known as Social Security Disability, for your confusion. It has all these different names. Social Security Disability, or SSDI, the source of payment is through the Disability Trust Fund. It is an insurance that workers earn by paying taxes on their wages. So it pays benefits to disabled individuals who are unable to work, regardless of their income and resources after basically there are some income and resources, income that it's going to matter, which we're going to talk about that. But benefits are for workers and adults disabled since childhood, but they must meet the insured status requirement. So basically, when we apply for our kids for Social Security, for SSI, you're also applying for Social Security Disability. They don't tell you that you're going to get a denial letter right away for SSDI. And they don't tell you in that letter that they're still processing your claim for SSI. You're getting that denial letter because the child didn't pay into the Social Security Disability Trust Fund. The SSI payments come from the general tax revenues, not the SSA trust funds. This is a needs-based public assistance program that does not require a person to have a work history. It pays disabled individuals who are unable to work and that have limited income and resources. Benefits for children and adults in financial need. They must have limited income and limited resources. And this asset limit is $2,000. Prior to your child turning 18, they're counting the parents' income and resources. So even though your child may be clearly disabled, they may have been denied for SSI because you had more than $2,000 in your name. Maybe you had more than one house or one car, which is allowable. You could have one house, one car of any value. You could drive a Rolls Royce and live in a $2 million house. It doesn't matter. One house and one car and asset limits of $2,000. So what happens is a lot of times people apply for disability for their child prior to turning 18 and they get denied because of the parent's income and asset, resource limits. And then they don't really know that they should reapply when the child turns 18 because it's based off of the child's assets and income. So for those of you that your children are getting SSI, they're under age 18 and they are getting SSI and they are actually disabled, you are going to need to reapply once they turn 18. They can keep SSI if they're still a student under age 19. But the Social Security Administration has to be notified of this. You have to provide proof, and you are going to have to reapply. It doesn't automatically just move over to age 18. And then the other unfortunate thing that I want to mention that people may need to be prepared for is benefits could stop before they restart. These applications are, the process is taking a year in some cases. It's taking a very long time. So when people are applying, if the child turns 18 or they're no longer a student, the benefits are going to stop. They're going to go back and back pay you, but you may not get that benefit for a year. So you need to prepare for that financially. So the difference, again, knowing the difference between SSDI, which you pay into like working quarters when you're working. If your child's never worked, they've never paid into the Social Security disability system. So when you apply, you're applying for both. You're going to get the denial letter right away, and you're going to feel very upset because you're going to think that they're denying them for SSI. The denial letter is typically correct. It's because your child hasn't paid in, and they're still processing the SSI application. So just knowing that. Veronica, do we have any questions for now?
Yes, we have a question for this specific slide. It says, in the current slide, on the SSDI slide, the last bullet point mentions insurance status requirements, but what does that mean?
It means that they have to pay into the system. So the Social Security Administration, you have working quarters and you're fully insured at 40 quarters, depending on your age. The younger you are, the less credits you need. I think if you're under 21, I think it's 6 credits, or maybe it's under 24, and then maybe it goes up to 10 credits. So, and that's all on their website of how many credits you need. You could say, how many credits do I need if I'm 36? And it'll tell you how much credits you need to be fully insured. But 40 credits is basically 10 years of work experience, but younger people do not need that. And we're going to talk more about that. That's a great question.
Sure. And also we have a question in the Q&A. Can you address spouse in care of DAC?
So we don't specifically address this and take a deep dive. Our software, we have the only Social Security software out there that takes into consideration a disabled adult child. It also takes into consideration a child in care benefit. There is a such thing that you can apply for a child in care benefit if the child is getting childhood disability benefits, which we're kind of jumping ahead. We're going to get there and we're going to talk about that. But if there is a parent that is staying home caring for said child and they're getting childhood disability benefits, not SSI, you can apply for child and care benefits, and there may be an additional benefit to the parent that is not working. Okay.
Okay, we have more questions, but let's go on and then stop again. Is that okay with
Okay,
you?
so one thing that I want to mention, and we do have an entire webinar on this, I like to talk about Medicaid waivers, and what I have on the screen today is for Texas. All states have Medicaid waivers, okay? And so some states do not have a waiting list. Other states have a very, very long waiting list. Texas, Florida happen to be a very, very long waiting list. They say upwards of 17 years for Texas. So you want to make sure if you have a child with a disability, you want to make sure that you've got them on all the waiver interest lists: HCS, Texas Home Living, Class, Community First Choice. You have a LITA number. You may have heard of MDCP. If you're hearing this for the first time, on the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel, there's an entire webinar on Medicaid waivers and how to get your child on the list, how to check where they are on the list. So you definitely want to check on that. And as I mentioned before, even if your child was denied for SSI before and they're clearly disabled, it was probably based off of your income and assets. You had too much and they were denied, and you do want to reapply. You want to make sure that they have money in the right buckets. We want to make sure that these kids do not have more than $2,000 in their name outside of an ABLE account or a special needs trust, or they will automatically be denied. And I want you to not forget about, grandparents that might have bought CDs or savings bonds 20 years ago that you forgot about. Those things all add up. And so if your child has more than $2,000 in their name, you're going to want to take care of that prior to your SSI application. And there are legitimate ways to take care of that, and there are ways that you can do it that are simply wrong. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the ways that are simply wrong, because sometimes parents think, I know, I'll just close the account. They're hip to that, and there's a look back. So you don't want to just close the account. So the ways that you can do this, or I'll just transfer the funds to my account. That's what I'll do. And those are all things that people think about all the time, and you're not wrong for thinking that. It's just wrong, and it'll come back on you. So the right way to get under that $2,000 limit for Medicaid is going to be to open an ABLE account and transfer the money into an ABLE account, to transfer the money, if it's their money, into a first party special needs trust, or to spend down the money for their benefit and have proof of what you spent it on. So that is a way, if you have that over $2,000 problem, that you can fix that. Okay, so disability rules over age 18, SSDI and SSI, they need to have a physical or mental impairment. The disability is expected to last 12 consecutive months or results in death. They're going to consider age, education, past work activity, and whether or not they have the inability to perform substantial work activity, which we're going to talk more about. So the substantial gainful activity for 2024. So basically what the substantial gainful activity, or also known as SGA, basically this is the amount that they're looking at, and they're basically saying if an individual with a disability is working and they're earning more than 1550 gross earnings per month, they're simply not disabled. Okay, that's basically the standard. 1550 gross earnings per month. They need to be earning less than that, or they're simply not disabled. If an individual is blind, their substantial gainful amount is 2590 gross earnings per month. Okay, so here's an important thing that you need to understand. SSI only uses SGA as a measure of work during initial claims. SSDI uses SGA throughout the life of the claim. So if a person is actually approved for SSDI, if their earnings are more than 1550 gross per month, then they will no longer be eligible for SSDI, basically is how that works. So they can work, they can earn up to 1550 gross per month, but if they earn more than that, then they're not going to still be considered disabled. The other thing that I want to mention here on this substantial gainful amount through the life of the claim is when we're talking about SSDI, sometimes, so, we were talking about this resource limit of $2,000. That's really applicable to SSI and Medicaid. And sometimes you'll hear from other parents that have kids that are disabled that if they're on SSDI or if they've switched over to childhood disability benefits, it doesn't matter how much money you have. And what I want to explain to you is that is true as long as you don't care if they lose Medicaid. If you want to maintain Medicaid, which we suggest you should, because all of the waivers are Medicaid waivers, require Medicaid eligibility. So even though people tell you it doesn't matter how much money they have when you switch over, it really does if Medicaid matters. And that is an important point because people have accidentally lost Medicaid for that reason. So SSDI, I want to mention that SSDI, after 24 months of being approved for Social Security disability, it comes with Medicare after 24 months. That's going to be Medicare A and B. SSI comes along with Medicaid. But what I want to mention to you is there are, in the state of Texas, I can't speak for every state, but there's over 109 Medicaid programs in the state of Texas, okay? So SSI comes with Medicaid. That is one Medicaid program. The Medicaid waivers in the state have their own Medicaid tied to the waiver. So some people think, well, I don't even need to be on the Medicaid waiver interest list because we simply make too much money and my child's a minor, and if he came up on the list, then they're not going to get it anyway. So what you need to know is that is not correct thinking on that. The Medicaid waiver, Medicaid is based off of the kid's income and assets, not the parents, not the traditional Medicaid guidelines. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So the SSI benefit rates for January 2024, all of 2024, for an individual, it is $9.43 per month. That is the SSI rate. If it's a couple and both parties are disabled, it's $14.15 a month. If you're on here and you're wait a minute, I'm getting $6.29 a month. I'm not getting $9.43. What that tells me is that your benefit is being reduced by 1/3 because you have not submitted a rent agreement saying that your child is paying rent or paying their fair share. Okay, so SSI is designed to pay for food and shelter. In March of this year, they announced that they are eliminating the food thing, where they're going to ding you for providing food and things like that. That's supposed to take effect in October of this year. So they're not as, they're basically saying it's, for shelter. So basically what they're saying is if your child is not paying rent, that they're going to reduce the benefit by 1/3. So that's $6.29. If you're getting that, you need to submit a rent agreement. As far as submitting a rent agreement, we definitely have a rent agreement template that we send. You can do your fair share, the difference between a fair share and a rent agreement. So when it comes to a fair share, what they're taking into consideration is the cost of the rent and the utilities, basically heating, water, sewage, property taxes, mandatory homeowners fees, rent or mortgage, divided by the number of the people in the household, and that would be their fair share. Or you can charge rent, and it needs to be normal and customary if you were renting a room to any border. And sometimes you can find data on this for your zip code by going to roomies.com. That's a good place to have support for that. So I wanted to mention that. Veronica, I'm going to pause for just a second so we can answer a few questions.
Yes, we have several questions. Let's start in the chat. Let's go and see in the chat. Thank you, Meredith, for saying that we are going to share the slides and we are going to send the recording link. But if you are fully disabled, the working credits do not matter, correct? When you were talking about
for
working
SSDI,
credits?
For SSDI, so working credits do not matter at all for SSI. It has nothing to do. People can qualify for SSI that never worked. The working credits is what matters for SSDI. So you could be disabled and have never worked, and you're not going to qualify for SSDI. So that does matter. And we're going to talk more. We're going to get into the weeds on the childhood disability benefits, because there is a way that our kids can be covered under SSDI program. It's called childhood disability benefits under a parent's record. So I am going to talk more about that.
Sure. Someone is asking, can you walk me through the steps to get SSI? My daughter is 18 years old and got permanent resident in January 2024. You're going to talk about that just in a minute, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Shelly, for sharing where you can check the waiver status. There is a link in there in the chat. If qualify for SSI and SSDI, does SSI ends? Can you have both? That's the question, kind of thing. Or is just one or another? That's the question, probably.
Okay, so that is it. That is a good question. So yes, and I call this the stump the chump, because a couple of times a year I'll get a case where the kid is getting some SSI, they're getting some SSDI under their own record because they've worked and paid in, and they still qualify for childhood disability benefits because even though they worked and paid in, they made less than the 1550 gross earnings per month. So they're still eligible for childhood disability benefits. So you don't get everything all combined. You'll get the highest amount, but you can get, so yes, you can have all three of those at once. But the other ones will be offset to give you the total amount. That's not going to be like I get all of the SSI, I get all of the CDB, and I get all of the SSDI. So that is possible. It is also possible that a person could be getting SSDI under their own record, but it's not more than $943 a month, like SSI. So they may get some SSDI under their own record and some SSI to bring them up to that full amount. So that is definitely possible. And we are going to walk through how and when to apply and what to do and what not to do.
Let's do just one more. Can an individual over 18 who gets SSI can apply for food stamps?
Yes, but if they're living in your household, and somebody else can chat about this in the chat box, but in general, if they're living in your house, if they're paying rent, basically they're going to take into consideration the income coming into the household for food stamps. So if they are living outside of the house, and sometimes people have accomplished this by adding an address to your house, like it's your house, but then you have B, and so maybe it's 123 Front Street, and then it's 123 Front Street B or something, but yes, you can apply for SNAP food benefits there, and there's different food benefits out there that may be worth applying for, and it's not automatic. You don't automatically get that.
And can you repeat the change that is happening in October with the SSI benefits?
So there used to be a deduction for food and shelter. They're eliminating food from their calculations, and they announced that in March, and it's happening in October. Okay. So because we have people that do attend from out of state, most every state in the United States, the Medicaid requirements are $2,000. They increased that in California to 130,000. I know we can only wish that would happen here, but anyway, whatever. Some states have higher Medicaid thresholds than us, but most states are still on the $2,000. It's a little ridiculous. It hasn't changed in like 40 years. And some people will say, I heard it's going up to $10,000. There's been some proposed legislation, but it has not passed. So we'll be the first to let you know if that ever passes. So for sure. Okay, so we'll move on and we'll take some more questions in a minute. The Social Security Blue Book, this is your friend. You can look this up online. If you're getting ready to apply for SSI, this is basically a medical impairment guide for SSI, for SSDI, to tell you basically what the Social Security Administration is going to be looking at to determine eligibility to see if your loved one is disabled. If your child is 18 or over, you're going to look under the adult listings. Under age 18, there's childhood listings. Don't make the mistake of looking at the childhood listings just because they're your child if they're over age 18. This basically lists all these diagnoses. And what I tell people is don't forget all of the diagnoses. So if your loved one has autism and ADHD and anxiety and depression, whatever they've got going on, insomnia, look it all up. Okay, because what you might think might be a slam dunk as far as them qualifying might not be a slam dunk, and what you think is insignificant might be what pushes the approval over the edge. So you want to look at that. And then there is a good publication that's called Understanding SSI. So we've got a link for that too. So it's the Social Security Blue Book, and we're going to talk about the Red Book in a minute. So Social Security has a Blue Book and they have a Red Book. I had a webinar a couple weeks ago. Somebody said, I heard they have a Black Book. I've not heard of a Black Book. They don't have a Black Book. They have the Blue Book and the Red Book. So those are books that you're going to want to be aware of. So what should you apply for and when? So you want to apply for SSI the month of your child's 18th birthday. Appointments should be scheduled a few months in advance for after they turn 18. I have this underlined because it is very, very important that you apply after they turn age 18, because if you apply before they turn 18, it's going to be based off of your income and assets. They're probably going to get denied. They might take a year to deny you, and then you're going to have to start the whole show over again. So it's very, very important to do it the day after they turn 18, or at least some days after they turn 18. You can apply through your local office, by phone, or online. Now, one frustrating thing in the state of Texas, and I can't say this is true for all states, is lately the local Social Security Administration offices have not been answering the phone. They've been forwarding the phones to the national line where you hold for an hour and then you tell them your little story, and then they say, oh, well, thanks for calling. You should have called the local office. That's basically how that goes down. It's very, very frustrating. So there are alternatives to that. They do suggest that you have an appointment before you go into the local office. If you don't have an appointment, you should fully expect to sit down there for 5 or 6 hours, like seriously. That is a real thing. So we do recommend appointments. Sometimes the national line is able to schedule local office appointments, but you can apply online, and we've got a link for this here. It's the ssa.gov /apply/SSI, and there is a website. And so sometimes people feel overwhelmed with this and they think, I got to get ready. I got to get ready to apply. Literally, it takes 5 minutes to state your intention to apply. You're basically stating your intention that you're going to apply, and it's going to say, thank you. We've got your request. Someone from our office will be calling you in the next few weeks. And usually within about 3 weeks, you're going to hear from somebody. When they call you, they are not calling to take the application. They are simply calling you to schedule your appointment to take the application, okay? And that could be from a couple of weeks to a couple of months down the road. Now, one thing that they will do is they will backdate the application. It'll save the date. And once it's approved, even if it's a year later, it will backdate and it'll pay from that backdated application. So when you're preparing, I suggest, I'm a little extra, but I suggest having a folder on your computer, label it SSI, maybe on your desktop. And I suggest dragging the things that you need to be prepared for the application into that folder, so that way you have everything ready. The more you have everything ready, the better you're going to feel. They're going to ask these questions. So you want to have evidence that demonstrates that the child's disability began prior to age 22 to qualify for childhood disability benefits in the future. This is also known as CDB. It was formerly called Disabled Adult Child, again, for 40 years, and then they randomly changed the name. They called it DAC, Disabled Adult Child, but now they CDB. And sometimes it's confusing because sometimes you might get a worker that's been working at the Social Security Administration many, many years. They've been calling it DAC for 30 years and they still call it DAC, but it is childhood disability benefits and it's one and the same. So just so you know. So getting ready for your application, we suggest that you gather medical history, names, address, and phone numbers of doctors. You're going to want to have their primary care physician, any specialists that they see, cardiologists, oncologists, neurologists, psychologists, psychiatrists. You're going to want to grab all of them that they see. A lot of our kids see specialists more than they see the PCP. Okay. Names, address, and phone numbers. you want to have a list. So again, just create a Word document of this. Have a list of the diagnosis history. What were they diagnosed with and when? They want to know what medications that your loved one is on, and they want to know what they're for. I don't care about the milligrams and the frequency, but they want the name and what they are for. If your child has worked, maybe they're in VR, vocational rehab, or some kind of other work, program, you need to have the name, address, and phone number of the employer, any earnings or pay stubs, and at least 3 months of bank statements. And some people may say, well, my kid doesn't even have a bank statement. Okay, that's fine. If you're going to be their representative payee, meaning maybe the child has an intellectual disability, maybe they're under guardianship, they can't handle finances, and they need a parent to interact on their behalf, then basically what you would do is open a bank account that's going to be specifically earmarked for the SSI to be direct deposited into. So that's one way. Another way, some kids do have an account and maybe the parent is on the account with them. That works. And then some kids have their own account. And as long as that account is under $2,000, you're okay with that too. All of that works. But what I want to caution you against is if you are their representative payee, have a separate account than your joint checking account, because SSI is a means-based program. It is you will go under financial review from time to time to see if you still qualify, and they're going to ask for the bank statements when they do that. So it's not good to have your funds and the SSI funds co-mingled. Okay, so here's another spot that I would say that I recommend too, is consider chatting with the PCP first and reviewing what their records. Remember, you're going to look at that Social Security Blue Book and see what evidence the Social Security Administration is going to need to see to prove that your child is disabled. So what I did for this, I just went to the PCP and said, hey, we're going to be applying for SSI soon. And I had a little print off of what evidence needed to be seen for my kid's diagnosis, and I just need to see the record. They're going to be requesting your records, and I just need to see what you would send, because I want to see if it depicts an accurate picture of what the diagnoses are and how they adversely affect this individual. So this is the polar opposite of what most adults think and do, because most adults go to the doctor, and if the doctor says something's wrong, you say, don't write that down. Well, for our kids, when we're applying for SSI, we want to make sure that the medical record is clear and that their diagnoses are clear, and how it affects them is also clear as well. So what should you expect after you apply? A decision usually takes up to a year, sometimes longer. After your local office has finalized your application, it is sent to DDS. We love acronyms. DDS, Disability Determination Services. This is in Austin. All of those applications go to Austin. It doesn't matter where you are in the state. And if you're attending from out of state, all states have a DDS. It's oftentimes in your capital city, but all states. So this is kind of the same procedure. The number that we have on here is the number for the Texas DDS. They're going to request and review your loved one's medical records looking for evidence of disability. So we recommend that you follow up on your application to see where things go. If they're waiting on records, or if they have everything and they're about to make a decision, you can find out what's going on. So when you call DDS, the cool thing about them is they answer the phone. It's pretty awesome. So you can give your child's Social Security. I would wait at least 3 weeks after you've done the application at the local office. The application at the local office has to be finalized, then they send it to DDS. So 3 things can happen when you call DDS. A, you call and they say, nope, we do not. What that nothing is happening and you need to get back on. The second thing that they may say is, yes, we've received Johnny's application, but it is waiting to be assigned. Okay, so it may say that it is waiting to be assigned. And that means that they're understaffed. And for instance, it took one of my kids 9 months to get assigned to a worker. So DDS had the application, but it took 9 months to get assigned. And then the third thing that they may say is, hey, yes, We have their application, it has been assigned, and they will give you your caseworker's name, and they will give you their extension, and you can call the caseworker and say, hey, I'm mom, I understand that you're the caseworker for little Johnny, and I wanted to see where we are in the process, and she will tell you who she has sent medical. They'll tell you back from, and what is outstanding. If they tell outstanding, you need to call the doctor and light a fire under the doctor, because your child can totally be denied because the doctor did not send the medical records within a timely manner. So the other thing is you'll want to ask for their fax number of where the doctor can fax those records, so you can provide that to the doctor. So I'm going to pause for a minute and take.
Sure. We're going to have, we have a lot of questions, Allison, and sometimes you're freezing sometimes. I don't know, probably it's internet, stuff like that, but overall it's okay. How do you appeal the SSI amount and submit a rental agreement?
So appealing the SSI amount, you don't always have to file an appeal, but it's an SSA 561, and you can download that form right from the internet. It's the SSA 561, and you can fill out the form and submit a rental agreement. And I recommend communicating with these offices by fax. When you fax stuff into them, it goes into their computer server and it links to your kid. Whereas if you mail them, and even overnight mail, it piles up in their mail room. So I think it's better, as archaic as it sounds, to fax to your local office, take documents in personally, as opposed to mail or overnight. So the rent agreement, again, fair share or rent agreement in general, I see people saying that they're charging 500, 550, 600 a month. I've seen as low as 350. But this day and age with inflation, they're questioning 350 as saying that they're not paying the going rate. So that's where that roomies.com comes in. So that's definitely a thing. You're on mute. I do that
Sorry.
like 5 times a
Sorry.
day.
The fair share amount is changing due to court cases announced in 417. It's over at 1/3 reduction amount. It's just a statement. I think it's not a question.
It hasn't happened yet. So we're all hopeful that that is going to go away completely, but it hasn't happened yet.
Once a rental agreement is in place, how is it appropriate to move the money to show the rent is actually being paid? I feel like the process needs close management, or we just can transfer the money from their account to our accounts, or how that
you
works.
you can transfer it, and like when you transfer funds, or Zelle it, you could Zelle, you can transfer it, you can write a check. I mean, the check, and then in the memo you can say it's rent. You could set up an automatic bill pay, to pay the rent to you. There's all those ways are okay. And for a lot of parents, they don't want this money. They just want the full amount to come in. And a lot of parents will turn right around and put that money into their ABLE account. So, and that is okay too. You can do that.
My son is 12, but we were denied when he was 3. If we reapply, will he get back pay?
No, that would be a new application. So one thing that somebody said about an appeal, I want to go back to. When the Social Security Administration sends you a letter, you need to read it, and you need to read every word, and you need to act and do whatever they said you needed to do within the time frame. Usually you have 60 days to appeal something. Okay, so after the 60 days, it would be a new application. So if they were denied back when they were 3 and now they're 18 and you're applying again, it is a new application. And so that's what that would be. And they're not going to back pay from back to that date. They would back pay from the date of your application. If it took a year to get approved, that's where they would backdate.
If your child is over 18 but still in school and not working, how do they pay for their fair share or rent?
So what you basically say is that once they turn 18, that you're going to be charging rent, that they owe rent from the time that they turn 18 forward, but they don't have the ability to pay it yet because their SSI has not been approved. When their SSI is approved and they get that back pay, then you can take that rent money in those past months out of that back pay to reduce, because a lot of times people get that back paycheck and say it's $10,000 and you're like, oh my gosh, panic, I can't have more than $2,000, right? Well, they give you 9 months to spend that down before they kick you off anything. You have 9 months, but you can also easily move that around to either a first party special needs trust or an ABLE account, which with the ABLE account being the preference over that.
It's more question about the appeal. Do you know how long does an appeal for SSI take?
Everything in the state of Texas right now is taking forever. So there is the only exception. I mean, like, so I would say 6 9 months, 6 9 months to a year. I mean, all of that is completely normal. It used to be that you applied for SSI and it would be approved in 3 to 6 months. Those days are gone. They're understaffed and they're very, very busy. So there is some exceptions. So presumptive disabilities, I'm going to move on and we'll come back to questions. A presumptive disability, if a person has a presumptive disability, they have something what's called a compassionate allowance, which basically fast tracks these applications. And they will be approved and they'll start paying prior to even being approved. They can pay up to 6 months prior to even being approved. So this link here is for the compassionate allowance list. There's like over 200 conditions that are considered a compassionate allowance. For those of you that are thinking about that, here are a few of them. I couldn't list all of them. Amputation of a leg at the hip, total deafness, no sound perception in either ear, total blindness, no light perception, bed confinement or immobility without a wheelchair, walker, or crutches due to a long-standing condition, stroke, more than 3 months in the past, cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, and a marked difficulty in walking or use of braces, Down syndrome, an intellectual disability, with the complete, and this is important that you understand this, an IDD diagnosis alone is not a presumptive condition. But if they have an intellectual disability or autism and they have the complete inability to perform activities of daily living, such as feeding oneself, getting it out of bed, toileting, transferring, bathing, then that is a presumptive condition. So if your child has a presumptive condition, you need to throw that word around during your application process and let them know that I understand my child has a presumptive condition, that there is a compassionate allowance for, and that this application will be fast tracked. You need to mention that several times, I suggest. So taking a look at that compassionate allowance, there's a lot of them out there, so you can put your child's diagnoses in. Working. How does working affect benefits? Guys, we have an entire webinar on this. It's too much to cover in this one. But when you work, when an individual works and they're getting SSI, their income reduces the SSI. So in general, how this is going to work, if a person was working and earning 1,200 gross earnings per month, there's a general exclusion of $20 and an additional $65 exclusion if they're working, an earned income exclusion. So basically there would be $1,200. You would subtract that 85. They would take the 1115 divided by 2. That's 557 of countable income. So you take the 943 minus 557.50. And then the following month, it usually runs like 2 months behind. So you report income between the 1st, it's late on the 10th. I suggest getting it in between the 1st and the 5th. So if a child is getting SSI and they go to work, you are required to notify the Social Security Administration that they went to work, the name, address, and phone number of the employer, and their hourly wage. And you are also required to report their earnings every month. And if you don't, and you don't get a letter from them, you will get a letter later, and that letter is going to tell you that you owe all that money back. So just make sure that you are reporting timely and monthly of those earnings. So as far as reporting earnings, once the Social Security Administration has the employer in their database, then you can upload in your child's login. You can upload pay statements. You can also fax in those pay statements or take those in as well. Okay, so the student earned income exclusion, I'm going to breeze through this relatively quickly. There is a such thing as a student earned income exclusion. This is not automatic. You have to ask for this. They don't offer it up. If the child is between the ages of 18 and 22 and they're a full-time student in college or university for at least 8 hours a week, grades 7 to 12, 12 hours a week, or in a training course such as any type of training course, at least 12 hours a week that's preparing them for employment. Homeschooling, grades 7 to 12, 12 hours a week. And this could also apply to transition programs as well. Basically, if they're a full-time student between the ages of 18 and 22, you can ask to have the student earned income exclusion applied to your child's case, and their SSI benefit will not be reduced for their income during that time. So that is cool. Another thing that I want to mention to you, so because some families will come to me and they'll say, if my child goes to college, can they still qualify for SSI? Yes, my daughter went to college, 4 years in college, received her SSI and the student earned income exclusion the entire time that she was in college. So college is not a deal breaker for SSI. The Red Book serves as a general reference guide about employment-related provisions of the Social Security disability insurance, as well as SSI, so supplemental security income programs. I jokingly say it's a boring read. If you ever can't sleep at night, pick that up. It'll put you right to sleep. There's a lot of information in there, and just know that working affects the different programs differently. They're two different programs. They're not the same program. How work affects these programs is different. So the student earned income exclusion is only needed for SSI. And again, check out our YouTube channel because we have entire webinars on this whole topic of working and what counts and what doesn't count. So I always just like to mention, you guys, if you've attended before, you've probably heard me say before, child support post age 18, even though it's being paid to a parent, it is going to be counted against them for SSI purposes, basically 2/3. So if you you want to get your child support redirected to a first party special needs trust. If the child support goes to a first party special needs trust, there will not be a reduction to the SSI. This is another thing that they may not catch on the front end, but you need to report it because they will catch it on the back end. And we've seen people get letters saying you owe us $76,000, right? So you want to make sure that this is right. If you're kind of on the divorce train, you want to get this set up on the front end. I suggest working with an attorney that is nuanced in special needs divorce to get the child support set up properly to go to the first party special needs trust as opposed to directly to you and count against the child. Okay, so that's going to be a real important topic. So SSDI benefit, to be entitled to RSDI or SSDI, Retirement Survivors Disability Insurance, Social Security Disability years, you want to be 18 years or older. The disability began prior to age 22 for childhood disability benefits, is a dependent of the insured worker, is not married, and has not previously performed substantial gainful activity. So we're kind of moving into this childhood disability benefits under a parent's record. So basically, what the Social Security Administration says is that if you have a child whose disability started prior to age 22, they have the ability to be under a parent's record for Social Security or Social Security disability. This benefit is going to be called CDB. Childhood disability benefits used to be called DAC. And basically what this means is that when a parent retires or goes on disability, Social Security disability themselves, that their child whose disability started prior to age 22 is entitled 50% of their benefits. So for example, Veronica, if you have retired or you're drawing Social Security disability and you're drawing $4,000 a month, and you have a child who has a disability that started prior to age 22, when you turn your benefits on, you're going to apply for childhood disability benefits, and your child's going to be entitled to 50% of your benefit. Your benefit is not going to be reduced. They're going to be eligible for $2,000. So basically what's going to happen is they're going to switch over from SSI to childhood disability benefits under a parent's record. The order in which you do things matter. So if you're sitting on here and you're thinking about turning on your retirement, you want your child to qualify for SSI and Medicaid first. It is super important. Some people can't help it because their spouse died and they're getting survivor benefits, or a spouse is already disabled. And if you can't help it, you can't help it. But if you can help it by not turning on your Social Security retirement benefits early, you want your child to apply and get approved for SSI and Medicaid first, because there are provisions in the law, 1619B, 1634C, that when the child moves over from SSI to that higher amount on CDB, that they won't lose their Medicaid. Because a lot of people are really afraid that their kid's going to lose their Medicaid because maybe they're getting a Medicaid waiver, but there are provisions to protect you. But if you do it backwards, then those provisions don't work, right? So it makes it very difficult. It's not impossible. We've had to do it a lot, but it makes it difficult. So the order that you apply matters. So when an adult child qualifies for CDB after 24 months, they're going to be automatically enrolled to Medicare A and B. Okay. So then they'll be dual eligible for Medicaid and Medicare. I always pause here to just say, I think it's important to keep your kids on your group health insurance past age 26. A lot of people don't know that you can keep your kids on your group health insurance past age 26. If your child has a disability that started prior to age 26, you can keep them on your group health plan. You need to call your HR department. There's a form, needs to be signed off by a doctor. It's possible that you'll call your HR department and they won't even know what you're talking about. Keep getting escalated. You might be escalated 15 times. Don't take no for an answer. It exists and you need it. And, to keep your kids on your group benefits are going to be better than the Medicaid and the Medicare. It's going to give you freedom of choice to take your kids where you want to go. So this childhood disability benefit will continue as long as the child remains disabled and as long as the parent remains alive. After the parent passes away, the benefit will be increased to 75% of the parent's amount. There is a such thing as family maximums. And so, if you have more than one child with a disability, the family maximums may kick in. If a spouse is drawing off of a spouse's record, other things like that, those family maximums kick in, and they're from 150 to 188% of the benefit. So that's a conversation for another day. So I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to move on to the ABLE accounts here. An ABLE account, so making sure you have your money in the right buckets is going to be important. We have entire presentations on the ABLE accounts. This is under the tax code 529A. And it's achieving a better life for an individual with a disability. It's for people whose disability started prior to age 26. In 2026, that age is going up to 46. It's the money in an ABLE account grows tax-free, and there's tax-free distributions. You put money in after tax. So it's kind of like a Roth is kind of how it works. It's not a Roth, but it's kind of like a Roth. But the money in an ABLE account doesn't count against them for SSI and Medicaid purposes. It's subject to the gift tax exclusion. You can put up to $18,000 a year into an ABLE account and an additional $14,580 if they're working up to their earnings amount. So if they're working and they only earn $5,000, then you can put an additional $5,000 above the $18,000. So some people say, Allison, I heard that you could put $500,000 into an ABLE account. You have a lifetime maximum of $500,000 in an ABLE account. And this is true as long as you don't care about losing Medicaid and SSI. If you care about SSI and Medicaid, you never want your ABLE account to be over $100,000. This is why it's going to be important to have a special needs trust as well as an ABLE account. An ABLE account can pay for food and shelter. Again, food is being eliminated without a 1/3 reduction to SSI. Sometimes I'll hear people say, I heard you cannot pay for food or shelter out of a special needs trust. That is simply not true. You absolutely can pay for food and shelter out of a special needs trust. But at this time, there would be a 1/3 reduction if you pay for it out of a special needs trust. So an ABLE account works beautifully with a special needs trust. A special needs trust, you can have an unlimited amount of money. An ABLE account, there's a limited amount of money you can put in annually, and there's a limited amount of money that you can have in before it disqualifies. So it's important to know the difference. And again, I know I said that quickly in the sake of time, but what I want you to know is that we have an entire webinar on special needs trust. We have entire first party and third party and the differences. We have an entire webinar on ABLE accounts. We help people set up ABLE accounts all the time. And so you can check those out as well. So, and you know, when we think about planning for the future, we think about developing a future care plan. We help with these things. We think about considering post-high school options and educational and vocational options. We think about transition programs, getting yourself on waiting lists for residential or partial residential or day programs that you might be interested in. And we always suggest making careful considerations before naming another sibling the future caregiver. We don't mind seeing an adult sibling being the successor trustee of a special needs trust that's going to pay for care for an individual with a disability, but we like the relationships to be loving and wonderful and not obligatory. And so what we say is have a plan and work your plan. We can help you with these things. We always talk about keeping things on your radar. You know, these future care cost estimates, that's exactly what we do. How much money do I need to fund a special needs trust? We're able to tell you that. The attorneys are going to be your legal documents, your special needs trust, your guardianship, your wills, your healthcare power of attorney. But we're going to be the money. How much money do you need? How do we fund the special needs trust? How do we make sure our accounts are set up properly to maintain eligibility for these programs, state and federally funded programs? So I always mention almost every webinar, make sure on your beneficiary designations, if you're taking notes, you want to make sure that you don't name your child directly as a beneficiary on anything that you have. It needs to be set up to the special needs trust for the benefit of said child, because they can automatically lose benefits such as that. Guardianship, alternatives to guardianship, that's going to be on our YouTube channel as well. We do work on a collaborative team here at CPG, and we always offer free personalized consultations. So if you have questions that we weren't able to answer today in the time that we had together, reach out. We'll be happy to work with you. This QR code right here on the screen, if you hover your camera over that, again, we're going to send you a copy of the slides. That is going to take you to our calendar where you can schedule yourself a free personalized consultation. I know we're out of time for today, Veronica, but if you want to just give me 2 or 3 more questions, I'll be happy to take them. Anybody that needs to jump off, I certainly understand.
Sure. We have a lot of questions in the chat. So if you receive SSI for your child and your income has changed, increased, do you need to make an appointment with the local office to update records, or do they periodical check about that?
If you're receiving SSI for your child and you're working, you're supposed to be reporting your income every single month, and you need to report your income. So you can fax that in, but you definitely do need to let them know, because that is going to affect the benefits and you're going to end up owing that money back. So that is very, very important for proper reporting. And you know, the way I say it is, hey, there's no secrets. Like, let's not keep secrets here. They're going to find them. And when they find them, you're going to owe a lot of money. So they may not catch child support right off the bat, or, you know, they may not catch things right off the bat. They are overworked and understaffed right now in a big, big way. But truth and, you know, being clear on all of that is always going to be the best policy.
Got it. What is that correct order? You mean this first apply for SSI, right? That was about the correct order.
Well, yes, you're gonna, when you're applying for SSI, you're applying for SSI and SSDI, and you're automatically applying for Medicaid when you're applying for SSI, because SSI comes along with Medicaid. The first things first is to make sure that the kid doesn't have more than $2,000 in their name. If they do, then you need an ABLE account. We can help you set that up, and you need to move the money into an ABLE account. The other thing is, the big thing is child support. A lot of states have child support that continues post age 18, and I know it's coming to the parent doesn't matter. It's for the benefit of the child and it's considered income to the child. So that needs to be resolved and you'll need an attorney to handle that.
What if my
And then
child
basically
moved to
apply, but
another
don't apply
state?
prior to them turning.
Sorry, what if my child moved to another state?
If you move to the another state, the SSI will continue, but you need to let the other state know because Medicaid is state specific. So you'll get the Medicaid in that state, but you got to let them know.
SSI comes with Medicaid. Does this continue past the age 18? If not, what options are there to continue getting SSI and Medicaid support?
Again, SSI, if your child is under age 18 and is getting SSI, you have to reapply. You have to reapply if they're a disabled adult child. You have to let the Social Security Administration know that you are applying for post age 18. You have to let them know if they're still a full-time student. It will not automatically continue. It will come to an abrupt stop.
When a parent of DAC age 33 retires, the spouse in care benefits is half of the parent that apply FRA, and DAC moves up to half of FRA. Does the SSI force the spouse in care to apply of their own benefit? That's in the Q&A.
So that is a long question, but basically if the parent is getting, they turn on Social Security and then the kid is now getting childhood disability benefits, no longer SSI, they've moved over to childhood disability benefits, then mom can apply for a child in care benefit, but it would be subject to the Social Security maximum, household maximum. So that may be a question that we need to take offline, but that's in general the answer there.
If a minor is getting SSI, they need to reapply for continuity at 18?
Yes. And yeah, and proof of disability, and you should fully expect that the benefits are going to stop before they get restarted. You should fully plan for that because that is what's going to happen, and it might be a year before they turn them back on. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer on that, but I think you got to know financially, if you think you're going to get $943 a month and you get nothing, that's a big difference. So, you know, I want to mention that.
How much is a consult through conservative planning?
We offer free personalized consultations. So that's what we have here on the screen. This QR code will take you to our calendar and you can schedule a free consultation with us to talk further.
You offer suggestion to move money over allowed 2000 to the first party special need trust. Am I correct in understanding that this first party special need trust is subject to Medicaid clawback rule?
Yes, a first party special needs trust does have a Medicaid clawback or a Medicaid payback, and an ABLE account does too. So it makes no difference. The only two places it can go is an ABLE account or a first party special needs trust, and both of them have a Medicaid payback. And again, there is some proposed legislation to get rid of that. It hasn't passed yet. So we're hopeful and optimistic that they're going to get rid of that, but it has not happened yet. But you are absolutely correct. Good point.
If you do a rental agreement, does that count as income that needs to be reported for the landlord for tax reporting?
This question comes up every time. I'm not a CPA and I don't play one on TV, but what I have done is done a lot of research myself and consulted CPAs, and I've Googled it. You can Google that question all day long and there is no good answer on the internet, if you can believe that. The general rule of thumb is if you're collecting rent, yes, that would need to be reported on your taxes. If you are charging them their fair share, which is again the rent or the mortgage, the utilities, divided by the number of people in the household, then in general, if you're charging them their fair share, then you do not have to put that on your taxes. And we suggest that you talk to a CPA on that. But what I'll tell you is I've talked to many CPAs on that and no one has a good answer. They just don't. You know, well, if it's your kid, then you don't put it on there. You know, I hear, different things like that. But I think you got to use your judgment.
We have a lot of more questions, Allison, but we are out of time.
Yeah, we're out of time for sure. So
I'm going to try to print, the questions in the Q&A and in the and also in the chat that one parent request if I can email the chat to attendees, I would try to do that. It's the first time that I've been asked to do that.
Everybody's asked great questions, and this is a very confusing topic for many. We're happy to meet with you and talk to you further about your specific questions. Thanks for putting your questions in the chat box. There are a lot of answers on our YouTube channel, so definitely check out the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel. And again, basically with the QR code from our slides, that'll take you to our calendar and you can schedule directly with us. Okay, so thanks everyone. It's certainly been a pleasure today, and we'll catch up soon. Bye now.
Thank you so much, Alison. Bye-bye, everybody.